My name is Askia, and I just want to welcome you to the Element Podcast. The Element Podcast is my opportunity to be able to sit down with people that I adore, capture them in their element, and sit down for a conversation to dig a little bit deeper in hopes that you can maybe take something away for better and improvement of your life. And so today for this first episode, we have my homeboy, Dalton Davis. I've known Dalton since first day of kindergarten. We met on the basketball court and have been homies ever since. And so I'm really excited for you to check this out. So I want you to sit back, throw your headphones on, relax, and check out Dalton in his element. So we made it. Mm-hmm. We're present. Right. So for the folks, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, say what's up, take it from the beginning. From the beginning of time.
Dalton Davis, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Ahwatukee, biggest cul-de-sac in the world. Mm-hmm. Haven't moved far from there.
Right.
Yeah, we've known each other since day one of kindergarten, age 5.
On the playground.
Yep. So what is that? 19 years now?
Is it?
24.
Dude, that's crazy to say. I don't think I've ever said. Yeah, that's a long time, bro.
That's very weird to say out loud.
And that's I think that's valuable, right? Like, obviously a day one homie.
Yeah.
And so I've seen you go through seasons. I've seen you go through, we have plenty of high school memories, college memories, everything, right? The people just saw, your element piece. What was that, right? How would you describe it?
Way cooler than I do on an average basis. Without a doubt.
Yeah. But cars, right?
Yeah.
Where does that begin? What's the story there? Because I don't even think I actually know what kind of sparked this.
Probably began before I was even around. My grandpa built sprint cars.
Okay.
Which are like dirt track race cars. He built those for years, long before I was born. That was kind of the family thing. Right? He was building race cars in their garage and always owned junkyards and body shops and all that kinds of stuff. That's kind of how my dad earned his rite of passage.
Right.
With my grandpa at the time, was helping him work on the race cars and stuff, sprint cars back in the day. So yeah, I mean, my grandpa was always fiddling with automotive something, and obviously my mom was an only child, so he didn't have a son to shed that on. So my mom picked that all up, and so I imagine early on in my life, I can always remember having some sort of Hot Wheel or something like that. So that probably planted the seeds, and you just gravitate towards those things, I suppose. And it just has spiraled into a dangerous and costly obsession at this point. But so be it. Everybody's got to have a vice.
Yeah, 100%. And so, how supportive have your parents been? In what capacity? Because they can kind of, set the Hot Wheels inspiration, but what kind of role have they sort of played, kind of crafting it a little bit?
My parents have been extremely supportive. I mean, obviously at the age of trying to get a license and things like that.
Right.
I mean, they gave me way more leeway than they probably should have, or what was probably responsible at the time.
Right.
I can remember being 11, 12 years old, already itching on a daily basis to want to be driving and get my license and things. And I made a wager with my dad, and I said, hey, if I get all A's, no slip ups until I get my license, can I get whatever car I want?
Right.
And he's like, yeah, sure. It's this kid's gonna mess up at some point.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. So I made that my life's mission. I was like, cool, I'm drilling in on that. Yeah. And time came, and as it got closer and I was continuing to be successful, there were like certain constraints that kept getting added to it.
Right.
But I mean, even still, my first car was way more than is ever even remotely reasonable for someone that age. So from that aspect, yeah, my parents were extremely supportive of that.
For sure.
And held up their end of the bargain in many respects. I mean, I found this car online in Idaho. And I was like, this is the one I want.
Yeah.
And they were like, this
dude.
He's really going to push us to this.
And he's going to pull trig on it.
And yeah, so I remember they literally wired this random stranger money. And they were like, yeah, the truck's supposed to go pick it up on the, like,
bro. So
they completely took the leap of faith.
Yeah.
And I was pretty diligent about doing my research. And I mean, they knew that that was my passion, and I worked all these years to try and, pin my parents on that obligation that they made to me. But yeah, it's a very roundabout way of saying they've always just been super supportive of that and encouraging of that.
Was it like a Craigslist ad?
I was deep in the forums
somewhere
at that point.
Okay.
BMW forums. And,
right.
Yeah, so.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they were extremely supportive. They always made it exceedingly clear, like, all right, you've got this, and this is very much a gift and something that is, to be cherished.
Right.
But if you get a speeding ticket, it's over.
You're done.
You're taking that back.
You're done.
You can get dropped off and picked up from school. So.
And so not one.
Never. I've never even been pulled over. So.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Bro, I think I'm at like 6 times. yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Whoa, 6 times?
Not a single ticket.
No.
For like random things like lights, tags. There was just a couple speeding times, but it was like 80 on the freeway in the HOV lane. And they were always like...
You had your grandma in the car?
My mom, and I was on a shoot, and it was my mom. But yeah. So never got one, but that's crazy. Not a single one in this fast, ridiculous car.
Yeah,
bro,
I think
that's
all
amazing.
that just begins from them putting those constraints.
Like,
hey, don't mess this up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, it's probably good. I can't mess this up.
Totally.
I can count on 2 hands the number of times I've done something genuinely reckless in a car.
Yeah.
I haven't done it in a while.
Sure.
You were certainly there to witness one.
Yeah.
We're gonna spare the details.
We'll spare it. Okay. But, fair.
Yeah, I've had a few instances that also kind of set your perspective or witness things happen.
Right.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm probably not as good of a driver as I think I
need
am.
to chill.
And that's been proven many times over. So
right.
Yeah, I try to be pretty moderate.
Totally.
Enjoying this hobby.
So of course, like the thread there was like working hard to earn this car, and I think over the course of, I guess now 19 years, I think the thing I admire most about you is like your work ethic. You work hard. So how did that develop, and what dividends would you say that sort of investment has paid out for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I find that I never really thought about it as hard work.
Sure.
I still I don't necessarily see it as hard work. I kind of see it more as like an obligation that I have to whatever I've committed to. So when I was in school, my parents very much framed it as, hey, this is your job.
Right?
Your job is to go to school and do well in school. You can have fun and do all these other things.
Right.
But your primary job is to do well in school. So I think just that kind of frame of mind of realizing like, okay, this is my obligation to do this, certainly played a role. My dad was a huge role model in that element of just kind of where I think I get my work ethic from.
Right.
He started working on a daily basis at the age of 13, I think.
Jeez.
He worked for his uncle at the time in greenhouses.
Okay.
because he was one of 6 siblings, and it was like, hey, you want a car? Go buy yourself a car.
Yeah, earn
all
it.
these things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so all through my life, he's always been extremely hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
Probably too much so in some ways, and he would even admit that. Mm-hmm. So I think the combination of my parents framing it as, hey, this is your obligation, this is your job, go do it as well as you can.
Yeah.
And also watching my dad work as hard as he did my entire life.
Right.
It just didn't feel right to do anything less than like maximum effort on school when I saw my dad, get up at 5 a.m. and go to work and come home at 8 p.m. and then get on a plane and leave. It was just like, I'm messing around. I'm not deserving of anything I have if he's doing all this and I'm over here, screwing around. Yeah. So I think some of that was just fear driven in some ways of like, I don't want to let my parents down.
Yeah.
And then there's momentum that's gained there, and that became a part of my identity as well. Like I wasn't great at sports. I played sports. I was somewhat athletic, but I wasn't great at sports. I knew that was never going to be my determining
thing. My breakthrough.
I learned that pretty quickly. I was like, I'm a little dude. Freshman year football, I was like, sports is fun. I got my ass rocked too many times.
Bro, fair.
So it's like it wasn't going to be sports. I was never super social, so that didn't have the returns that it has for some other people. And so part of that was just becoming my identity. Really in school of, okay, I'm a, not even that I'm more intelligent, but I know how to do this school thing. Right? Like I found the pattern, and I know how to play the system.
Work the
I know
system.
how to play the game. And that sets me apart from other people in some way. And I think there's just any sort of success that anybody has, no matter what it is. For me, it's been school, and that's kind of translated into work and career. Like I found a way to play the game and to operate in that system very well. But even like right now at work, I work from home, and I log on at 7 and I'm off at 3, and I'm kind of tinkering around with other stuff throughout the, like it doesn't feel like hard work. It just I know how to play the game well, and I know how to direct my efforts appropriately when it really needs to happen,
when it's called upon.
So that's why in some ways it doesn't really seem fair to say that I work hard, because it doesn't really feel like hard work. It just feels like I found the best way to be good at whatever game I decide to play.
That's genius.
I honestly think it's lazy. I think that's like I'm trying to maximize the returns with minimal input. So,
and like hop on the system and then kind of automate in essence.
Yeah, just like find your groove.
Sure.
But I think, and I've had this conversation with other people recently. There's also elements of focusing too much on school that, I ignored other parts of my life. Or, didn't lean as much into kind of being social and chasing those kinds of things. So it's a trade-off. I think I've learned a lot from my dad, especially in having conversations since he's retired. He looks back and reflects on his life and realizes there's a lot that I missed out on too. Because I was spending so much time focused on work. So there's a balance to be had. I'm still trying to find that balance. It'll be an ongoing forever process, but
it's a fine line. Too much and not enough of that work ethic in essence, or like doing things correctly, right? So I think maybe the filter of the crap or like the bad parts of it, is sort of thinking about how I may raise my children, That may be a good filter. Like, what are some of those things that are in that filter or that get filtered out, So when you're thinking about maybe in the future, like having kids, what are some of those things that you may want to keep or you may want to kind of toss out? Like, what are the lessons there from your own life and experience?
Yeah, that's tricky. The older I get, the more I realize that raising kids seems like such a roll of the dice. Because I can look back on, where I'm at, and, there's obviously a lot I'm not very good at, or a lot of things I have to improve on. But in general, I'm pretty pleased where I'm at in life. I can look back and say, oh yeah, I made these trade-offs and I missed out on things that maybe I shouldn't have. But also on the flip side, I'm glad I had that, work ethic, or I could bake my identity into school. Because if I didn't have that, I don't know if I'd have much else, to be quite honest with you.
Right.
So when you start to then translate into that, to the conversation of how would I use these approaches or take these lessons that I've learned and try to apply that to kids, something I'm not equipped to think about, which is probably good, because I don't intend on having kids anytime soon. So.
Yeah. No, I feel that, man.
But I mean, how about for yourself? I mean, this notion of hard work or work ethic, how do you phrase that, or how do you frame that in your own life, or trying to find the balance of doing what you enjoy, doing what you want to do, but also dedicating yourself to something and committing to hard work in some areas?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult for me as I'm trying to navigate the journey in and of myself. There are days where I can rack up 15 things on my to-do list, and it's like I kind of measure success on that day by like the percentage of things that I knocked off right on that to-do list, and then I can reflect on it at night and say like, okay, I can maybe work harder, maybe I can complete more, versus like actually working harder, but maybe I can complete more. But then there are days where like I have two things, and like a lot of the day is spent, playing at like Apex, or, on Instagram, or going to random shops and spending time in different places or whatever. And so it's like, it's doing what I feel is appropriate at the time. And really questioning like, is this something that is worth doing right now? So like, am I actually going to enjoy playing Apex for like 2 or 3 hours in the middle of the day, right? When there's like options to be able to like learn something on Adobe Premiere or something, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the balance of those things. But I mean, when I kind of when I have that task list, it's very clear that like that's a good metric of like how hard I'm working, especially with something that's so arbitrary, with like the field and creative. There's no hard KPIs, and like I'm the one that's obligated to myself, whereas like a lot of people and yourself like oftentimes are obligated to other people and other things. And so it's really working through that obligation to myself and like, okay, what are my standards, and can I hold myself to those consistently?
Yeah, because and we've had conversations about this in the past, that's what seems to be the most difficult part of this solo creative journey,
for sure,
that you're on and have been on for a while, is you need, at least it seems like from the outside, that you need this time to relax, or go mess around in a shop, or go do something to get inspiration, or just to kind of clear your mind and give yourself that ability to think freely, or try to enter that flow state.
Yeah.
But also the sense of accountability that you hold for yourself, like you said, is very arbitrary, and it's very self-defined, which seems like it would be pretty difficult. How do you then also gauge that, or kind of temper your expectations with something like social media and observing what everybody else is doing,
right? Potentially
at the top of a game, or doing it at the highest level? How do you frame your own actions, or your own kind of desires within that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fine line between wasting time and like finding inspiration. Right? Yeah. Like I think I follow a lot of other photographers, I follow a lot of other like designers and people who just have like cool lifestyles, or what I would define as like cool lifestyles. And so it helps a little bit, but it's like there's always this bug in the back of my head. It's like, okay, could you be recording a podcast? Could you be doing this, that, and the other? And it's like, sometimes like I give in, I'm like, no, It's not something I want to do. But I think it gets tricky because like in this field, it's not always consistent, right? Like I think I'm about to come up on a really, really good month in September, but like in August, it was not a great month, right? And so it's one of those things that's just kind of like, okay, there's going to be ebb and flows, but what systems can I sort of put into place that'll help me remain as level as possible? And, you know, then that's when like character comes out. Is like, can I set that standard? Can I set that baseline in systems of whether it's finances or whether it's in faith, whether it's with my family, that like, okay, as long as I'm doing like these things, cool, it was a good day, it was a good week, whatever it may be. So, yeah.
Do you think a lot about the notion of kind of short-term gain versus long-term gain in your actions? It's like this sense of delayed gratification. Do you think about that on a consistent basis?
I have a lot more recently now since I started the 75 hard program. Like that's been something that's come up a lot. Is like, is this decision going to be beneficial for my body or not beneficial for my body? And I've seen that kind of bleed into like the rest of my life. It's like you know, it is me creating my reel right now, even though it may like suck having to go through all the footage. Like, you know, there's a lot of stuff in there, so could suck being in the footage, but like long term, having something that's updated like that it's a really good thing to have, and something that you can push and sell. But as of late, yes, but usually no. My metric has always just been finish that task list, and then once you get through that, you're cool.
I mean, in a lot of ways that embodies the kind of Gary Vee mentality of long-term patience, short-term, forget exactly how he phrases it.
Like day-to-day speed.
Yeah. Exercise patience over the long term, but on the micro level, you should be working as hard as you can and as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I could see this idea of, hey, I've just got my task list every day. My focus is burn through this task list.
Yeah.
Like if I can successfully get over that hurdle every day, those become compounding effects over time.
Yeah.
But it's interesting with the 75 hard that's reframed your perspective on things. Because with the 75 hard, you're locked in for 75 days.
Luck. Yeah.
So at the bare minimum, you can't look beyond 75 days, I imagine. If you're trying to search for, like, what are my results going to be? What's the ultimate outcome of this going to be? Like, it's all a cumulative effort for a period of 75 days.
Right.
So you're bought in.
You have to be in.
There's no point in thinking about, oh, what does my progress look like today?
Right.
Because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Whether I see the progress I want or I don't, because I'm bought in for at least 75 days anyways.
Right.
Is that kind of how you think about it? Or is it a bit different when you start to rationalize the kind of delayed gratification for something like 75 hard?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think the mentality is when I wake up, it's like another opportunity to do it. So it feels fresh. It's like day one. And so there's almost this like, okay, we're doing this all over again. Let's go. Right. And so there isn't much reflection on what has happened. And there's very much less like looking into the future of like what's going to happen in like a week or where I'm going to be at in a week. There's very much like I have this day today and I have to get through this stuff and cross off these tasks. And then when I wake up, do it all over again. Which is nice because it's like living in the present, right? Like you're living in like now. You got these things. You got to do them. It's very cut and dry. But do you feel like that's something that can translate like in your life now? Or like that makes itself like that dichotomy of, you know, living now versus, or like living in the present versus like living past or future? Is that something that you kind of bounce around with work, with like, how do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I found that that's really difficult for myself. because there's always something. I tend to be pretty self-critical.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at where I'm at now, there's always things to nitpick.
Sure.
Like things to wish that they were better, or that I was better at, or that I did less of, or something to that effect. And it's really attractive to kind of live in this space in my head of, yeah, this is where I envision myself going, or this is who I envision myself becoming. So it's hard not to get caught up in that, and instead translate that into kind of the approach you've taken, which is, okay, yeah, that's great, and I should set my sights on that and kind of aim for that, but on a day-to-day basis, what does that actually look like?
Right.
So it's tricky. I mean, it's something that I definitely still kind of wrestle with on a day-to-day basis.
It's life.
I mean, on a moment-to-moment basis. Yeah, and that's
right.
And that's part
the essence.
Of the existential struggle of being a person, I guess.
For sure.
If we want to get really meta here. But,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. I don't think about the past much.
Yeah.
And I think I've gotten pretty good at managing expectations.
Okay.
Or really having no expectations at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a way that I've tried to manage this notion of living in the present. That I really don't have any expectations for anything moving forward. And I feel like there's a small difference between expectations versus how I want things to be.
Right.
I definitely have an idea of how I want things to be.
It'd be nice if they played out like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't... Like, a small example would be when I studied abroad in London.
Mm-hmm.
I was very intentional in the months leading up to that about not thinking about it at all. About not fantasizing about what I wanted it to be like, or what I wanted to do, or what I wanted to see, or where I wanted to go. I was super intentional about, like, yeah, I'll figure it out when I get there. Yeah. And I think I've kind of drawn that out now into the rest of my life. Whether it's starting a new job or, like, I don't know, going to a show or something like that. I really try actively to have no expectations for things.
Like, we'll wait and see how it goes. Yeah. Which
I think some people would argue is maybe kind of a bleak way to go about life.
Yeah. I mean, it's stoic for sure.
Yeah, I try not to get, this doesn't sound rough, but like I really try not to get excited about anything.
Yeah. You can't, because it'll kill you, bro.
Well, you just get let down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, bro. And then that's like, and then it's just rough. But yeah, I totally agree. But as we close out, man, I'll throw you on the hot seat real quick. So I'm gonna ask you some rapid fire questions, and you just gotta answer them. What comes top of mind?
All right.
Drake versus Kanye. Drake or Kanye.
If I could only have one to like listen to or live forever, I'd take Drake.
Okay.
I think on a day-to-day basis, it's more interesting. Like it just has more of an impact. Yeah. Kanye is very fascinating, but I could live without, I guess.
Fruits or vegetables?
Fruit.
Nike or Adidas?
Nike.
Hawaii or Africa?
Africa.
Lambo or Rolls Royce?
Lamborghini. I could never take myself seriously. Rolls Royce. You gotta think.
That's good.
Really cool.
You do. You have to, bro. You have to.
Fine if you've got that swag and that's you, but no way.
You can't see yourself getting out of one.
Picture
is that what it is?
Getting
I
out
can't
of
do it. I can't do it, bro.
I look way too geeky.
Yeah.
No. That's just taking yourself too seriously. At least for me.
Yeah, I feel it. Well, good stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I think it's gonna be the first one, and you wrapped it up, man.
Well, I'm flattered you think I'm interesting enough to talk to.
100%. Always, bro.
I imagine this conversation may have convinced people otherwise, but nonetheless, I'm excited to see what you do with this. I think it's a really cool project. So.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any last words?
Stay tuned for episode 2.
Let's go. Thank you.
Of course.